Hello, everybody. Today we want to talk about calculating commissions and the math associated with doing commission calculations. And I know that is um, a little bit of a source of confusion for some people. So it's something we want to go through step by step. But here's the thing. You ought to love this math. You should be excited about this math. If nothing else, you can't get paid if you can't do this math. And the very first thing I would think you'd want to be able to verify is if you're being paid correctly. And so this math is really important to you on a personal level to be able to understand how to calculate commissions that are owed and how commissions are shared in the transaction. So I'm going to share with you some slides and we're going to work through them. Again, this comes from Unit 8, which is the Agency Contracts chapter. And remember, agency contracts are listing agreements, they're buyer agency agreements. These are the agreements that we have with our clients, whether we represent the seller or whether we represent the buyer. We cannot be paid in North Carolina without a written agency agreement with either the seller or the buyer, depending upon who our client is. And of course, if we were a dual agent, we would need an agency contract with both the seller and the buyer. But we're going to look at how these commissions get calculated and then how they get shared between firms in cooperative transactions, and make sure you're comfortable with doing all of those. So let me go ahead and share the slides with you here. And let's take a look at these as we start to go through them. So whenever we are calculating commissions, the first thing we need to look at, and really whenever we're doing any sort of a math question in the class, is do we have a TBar formula? And the answer in this case and in most cases is absolutely yes. We do have a TBar formula and this is it. And so the way I would read this TBar to myself is to say, if I was trying to calculate the commission on a transaction, the dollar amount, the amount that my firm or my office was going to be paid in the transaction, I would need to know two things. I would need to know the purchase price of the property or sales price, and I would need to know the commission rate. And remember, because those two things are side by side in the TBar, we are going to multiply them. So the purchase price or sales price, we could say sales price, that's the same thing, not the list price. That's an important thing to point out. We don't really care what a property is listed for when it comes to calculating our compensation. We care what it sells for. And when we say the commission rate here, we usually mean the listing commission. Now, it is true that we could be compensated by really anybody in the transaction. We could be compensated by the buyer. We could be compensated by the seller. We could be compensated by some combination of the buyer and the seller. But for our math purposes in the class, and for the vast majority of transactions you're actually going to work with in the real world, we're almost always going to be talking about commissions being paid from the seller to the listing firm. So we're talking about the listing commission. And then the commission may get split up from there, but it's almost always how much the listing firm is being compensated by the seller. So when we look at just a very basic example like this, it says a home sold for $325,000 with a 7% total commission being charged. What is the commission on the sale? So they want to know the dollars. They want to know how much the firm got paid, which is right here. That's that amount right there. And they give us some very important information in asking us this. They give us the sales price right here, or purchase price of $325,000. And they also give us the commission rate right there of 7%. So once we have those two things, we have a purchase price or sales price of $325,000, and we have a commission rate of 7%. We have filled in two of the three things in the TBar, and they happen to be side by side. So we know that's going to be multiplication of 325,000 times 7%. And you're going to type it into your calculator exactly like that. And remember, on a calculator, And you should not be using your phone. If you're using your phone or the calculator app on your computer, stop. Get a calculator. You cannot use your phone or an app or something like that on the license exam. And I cannot stress enough how much you need to be using your own calculator and get comfortable with it. It has to be a basic calculator, not a graphing calculator, nothing that you can save like formulas or that sort of thing on. Just a basic calculator is all you need. And so 325,000 times 7, and when you hit the percent button, that's it. Don't hit equals on most calculators. Once you hit percent, you're going to get the answer. And that is a total commission in dollars of $22,750. And remember, that would be paid by the seller to the listing firm. $22,750 paid by the seller to the listing firm. So very straightforward, easy to calculate. And lots of times people want to know, we're nosy, I get it. We want to know, well, how much am I going to get of that? How much are you going to get? Are they going to split it this way? Are they going to do this? Are they going to? That's not what they ask us. Now we will get more complex and we will talk about all those commission splits. But for right now, this is the total amount of commission that is going to be paid by the seller in the transaction. What those firms, particularly the listing firm, chooses to do with their $22,750 is up to them. They may choose to share it with another firm who helped them find a buyer. We call that a selling firm. They may choose to keep it all internally. They may choose to give the broker in charge all the money. They may choose to give the licensee who brought the business to the firm all the money. They may split it somehow within the firm. Here's what you need to understand about that. That's all their business. That is the firm's business. What we are calculating is the money flowing in, unless they ask us to go specifically further than that. And if they do, then that's what we do. But right here, total commission, $22,750. Now, when there are multiple firms involved in the transaction, and remember, we call those co-brokered transactions, right? A co-brokered transaction. Co just means more than one. That's all it means. Anytime we talk about co, and usually it means two, but it just means more than one. Concurrent owners, more than one owner. So co-brokered means more than one firm. Usually it means there are two firms, and that's convenient because there are two sides of the transaction. There is the side bringing the seller. So the side who brings the seller is called the listing side. They brought the seller, they represent the seller, they are on the seller's team. And then there is the selling side. And that side brings the buyer to the transaction. I want you to understand that there are two activities that a real estate firm can participate in a transaction. They can either list the property or they can sell the property. And those are two different things. Two different things. Listing and selling are not the same thing. Listing is putting it out there so people can see it, people know it's available, people can come look at it. That is listing the property, making people aware. When you are on the listing side, you have been hired by the seller to make the public aware that the property is on the market. Selling the property involves finding a buyer. If a firm brings a buyer client of theirs to a property, they are the selling firm. They may not necessarily have been the firm that put that property on the market. That was the listing firm's job. but bringing the buyer is called selling the property. So when in a transaction, we're doing one of two things. We're either listing it or we're selling it. And you need to say that over and over and over to yourself. We are either listing it or we're selling it. And those are two different things. They are black and white. They are night and day. They are on and off. They are polar opposites of each other. They are not the same. We are either listing it or we are selling it. Well, if listing it means we have been hired by the seller and selling it is the exact opposite of listing it, that must mean selling it is being hired by the buyer, representing the buyer, bringing the buyer to the transaction. That is the buyer's side of the transaction. It is terminology you have to be comfortable with. There is just no other way around it. You have to be comfortable with that terminology to be successful with understanding the way these questions are going to be phrased on the license exam. So how do we split up those commissions into two pieces, because there are now two firms? Well, the first thing we do is remember the two sides. You have the seller's side of the transaction, and you have the buyer's side of the transaction. Every transaction has those two sides because every transaction takes two people, the seller and the buyer. Now, the actions are not the people. Sellers don't sell and buyers don't buy. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true, because the actions are not selling and buying. The actions are listing and selling. Listing and selling are the actions. The people are the seller and the buyer. But the actions are listing and selling. Listing the property for sale is putting the property for sale, is putting the property on the market, is putting it out there so people know it's available. Listing is what the seller's side does. The other action other than listing is selling. Remember, listing on one side, selling on the other. Listing on one side, selling on the other. You cannot repeat it too many times. You need to make peace with that. Listing is one thing, selling is the complete different thing. So if we are selling the property, we are on the buyer's side. Selling is a buyer activity. Listing is a seller activity. Listing is the activity that the person called the seller does. Selling is the activity that the person called the buyer does. I don't like it either. I didn't make it up. It's not my idea, but you have to deal with it. Stop whining, get yourself together, and deal with it. And here's the thing. If you haven't dealt with it, pause the video right now, because there's no need to go forward with the math until you make peace with this terminology. And you can make peace with this terminology. You can walk around your house for the next 15 minutes and you can say, selling, buyer, selling, buyer. The buyer is selling. If somebody is selling a property, that's the buyer. The buyer is selling. Selling means buyer. Selling is the buyer. I mean, literally, just repeat it over and over and over in every possible way you can think to invent it. And then you say, listing, that's the seller. Sellers list, buyers sell. Selling, buyer. Just do it. Just do it and stop complaining about it. That's what I had to do. We all had to do it. Do it. You'd be better off for it. Okay? So now that we've hopefully made peace with the terminology, we can talk about how these commissions get split. Well, here's the thing to understand. This is just math. The commission that's going to be kept by the listing firm plus the commission that they share with the selling firm has to add up to the total commission. Those two things together have to always add up to the total commission. And the reason is that the total commission is being split into those two pieces. The two pieces together can never add up to be more than the total. So when we look at just examples, these are examples of different ways they can be split, and they're not always split equally. Well, here we have a case where they are split equally. The total listing commission is 6%, and the listing firm is keeping 3% of that, while they are giving the selling side 3%. Because remember, think about how the money is really flowing in a co-brokered transaction. The seller is compensating all the money over here to the listing firm. The seller is giving all the money to the listing firm here. And then they are sharing some portion of that with the selling firm. But because they're sharing some portion of, they can never share more than they collected. If they collected a total of 6% and they kept 3% for themselves, there was only 3% left to share with the selling firm. So those two have to add up to each other. And then I've just given you some examples here of different splits that could exist. I mean, you could be charging a 6% commission that's being paid to the listing firm, and they're keeping 4 right here. Well, that only leaves 2 left over, because 4 plus 2 is the total of the 6%. They have to add up. Here's one where we have the listing firm keeping 2.5%, and that leaves 3.5% for the selling firm. Anything is possible. Here's one where the listing firm is charging 5, they're keeping 3 and paying 2. We could even have situations where the listing firm is charging 8 or 10 and only paying 2. There's nothing fair about any of this. The commission and the commission agreement is between the listing firm and the seller. They can agree to whatever they want to. Remember, antitrust laws don't allow us, the Sherman Antitrust Act and price fixing laws don't allow us to say things like, well, they should be paying equally, or they should be splitting it equally, or that's not fair how they're doing it. It's their business what they want to charge and how they want to split it. That's their business. Just like it'll be your business when you're the listing firm. And you don't talk about what other people charge. You talk about what you charge. Okay? So how do we calculate commissions when we do have this split going on? So look at this question. It says a home sold for $227,000 with a 6% total commission being charged. The listing firm is cooperating with firms who produce a buyer by offering them 2.5% of the sales price. Based on this information, what is the listing side commission on the sale? Now, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a hint, shortcut thing. When you see in the test questions, so I'm going to highlight some percentages here. When you see like single digit percentages, low numbers, 2.5%, 6%, 5%, 4%, 3%, those kinds of numbers, those are percentages that you're going to multiply times the sales price. And if you see down here, that's exactly what we've done. We've taken the sales price and multiplied it. And of course, that's exactly what the TBar says we're going to do. If you look at this thing, it says here that the property is sold for $227,000. That's what it says the property is sold for. So we've got a purchase price of $227,000 right there. And the real question here for us is going to be, well, what commission rate do we need to fill in here? Because they want to know what's the commission paid. Here is how I always do this. I'm going to draw out the commission split in the transaction as detailed as I possibly can. I'm going to start with the purchase price of $227,000 because I know everything is based on that purchase price. And from that purchase price, we have the total commission, which in this case is 6% total. And I know that's getting split out into 2 sides. Now, I always put the listing side on the left because it's just easier to remember the listing side to the left. And then that leaves the other side as the selling side, right? Those are the 2 sides we have of the transaction. So the listing side and the selling side, and here's what they tell us. they're charging a 6% total commission. It says the listing firm is cooperating with firms who produce a buyer by offering 2.5%. This is going to be worded one of two ways. Either the listing firm is keeping a certain amount, in which case that's the listing firm side of the thing, or they are paying or offering or sharing or giving some number. In this case, it says the listing firm is offering 2.5. So the listing firm is not keeping 2.5. They're offering it to other people. So they're sending the 2.5% over here. Make sure we know it's 2.5, not 25. They're sending the 2.5% over there to the selling side of the transaction. Well, I can do basic math, folks, and that's what I'm going to have to do here. I'm going to have to say to myself, okay, 6% minus the 2.5%, that means over here, this must be 3.5%. That has to be 3.5%, which means now I have both sides filled in. So the question is really going to become, which one do they want to know? And here's the question. What is the listing side commission? So they want this right here. They want that 3.5%. And so that's going to be the number I fill in down here in my equation. They want the listing side, that's 3.5%. Now I have two things filled into the T-bar. I'm ready to do some math. Those two things are side by side. So I'm going to type 227,000 times 3.5%. That's $7,945 in total commission. $79.45. That will be paid to the listing side. That's not the total commission on the transaction, because that would have been the 6%. That's not what they asked us for. They wanted just the listing side. So that's $7,945 on that particular transaction. Okay, so why don't we take that knowledge and let's jump over to the math worksheet that you have for this section of the class. And let's take a look and see if there are some simple questions like that we can tackle before we get things any more complex. And because I think there are. Okay. This one says Blue Sky Real Estate is listing a property for sale using the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with a 6% total listing commission, and they have agreed to compensate cooperating selling firms with 2.4% of the total sales price if those firms produce a buyer for the property. Here's the thing. People freak out when they see these long questions. Folks, they haven't asked me a question yet. They're just giving me information. It's just information. Don't freak out. Keep reading. Keep reading. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not share my screen with you adequately. I'm going to have to do that again. Let me do that one more time and share it with you so you can actually see. It would help if you could actually see it. There we go. Here's your math worksheet, which is available in your Learn, Test, Pass interface. So it's under Chapter 8, called Commission Split Worksheet. So again, I'm going to start reading the question. Blue Sky Real Estate is listing a property for sale using the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with a 6% total listing commission, and they have agreed to compensate cooperating selling firms with 2.4% of the total sales price if those firms produce a buyer for the property. It's a lot of info. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care about any of it. You know why I don't care about any of it? I don't care about any of it because I have no idea what they're going to ask me for. For all I know, they could ask me what the name of the firm was. And see, that's what you have to realize. Stop trying to memorize and focus and deal with and write down all these numbers and all these facts until you actually get to a question. Figure out what they're asking you. Based on this information, how much is the total listing side commission? There it is. Finally, a question. How much is the total listing side commission if the home sells for $500,000. So now I know I'm going to be calculating a commission and I'm going to be splitting it up. And so I'm just going to map things out for myself. Okay, I know I'm going to have a sales price. And I know from that sales price, I'm going to have a total commission. Okay, so here's my total. And drawing it out really does help. So I have my total commission here. Okay. And then I know from there, I'm going to split this out into two distinct pieces called the listing side and the selling side. So they want to know how much is the total listing side. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that for myself. That's eventually what they're asking me for here. Now I need to start filling in information. Start back at the beginning. Blue Sky Real Estate is listing a property for sale. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in that Blue Sky is over here because it says they're listing. That way I know where they are. They're listing the property for sale using the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with a 6% total listing commission. Well, here's my total commission right here is 6%. So I'm going to fill that in. And they've agreed to compensate cooperating selling firms. So there's that statement right there. They have agreed to compensate cooperating selling firms. Look at that word choice right there. Compensate. It doesn't say the listing firm is keeping or the listing firm is earning, or it says they're compensating, they're paying, they're sharing, they're giving selling firms this 2.4% right here. So I'm going to put that 2.4% on the selling side. Now, doing basic math, I know that 2.4 came from the 6. And so therefore, I know the remainder is what's over here on the listing side, which means there must be 3.6% over here. That's just 6 minus 2.4. So the listing side must be getting 3.6%. And then it finally says, if the house sells for $500,000, well, I know my $500,000 goes all the way up here as a sales price. Now, remember what I told you the trick. If you've got small percentages, 5%, 6%, 7%, anything that's single digits, less than 10%, you're always going to tie that directly to the sales price. So your math is going to be right there, those two numbers. It's going to be $500,000 times 3.6%. So that's what you're going to type in the calculator, 500,000 times 3.6%. That's the way you're going to handle that kind of a math question. And if I type that into my calculator, 500,000 times 3.6%, I end up with $18,000 going to the listing side. Now, I could certainly calculate the selling side if I wanted to. I could do 2.4% of $500,000, but they asked me specifically for the listing side, so that's the listing side. It's 3.6% of the sales price. That's $18,000. So the listing firm. Now, we don't know what the listing firm's going to do with that money. Are they going to split it with, is the firm going to keep some and then the individual agent going to keep some? Probably. But that's not what they ask us about. So we're not going to go any further than they ask us to. Look at this one. It says Thomas is a provisional broker affiliated with Ace Homes of the Triangle and has taken a new exclusive right to sell listing in which the seller agrees to a 5% total listing commission. If Ace Homes compensates firms representing the buyer with 2.75% of the total sales price, How much, there's a question. I know it's coming now. How much is the selling side commission? So they're asking me for a selling side commission. I know I got to map the thing out again. I know I'm going to start with a sales price. And I know from there, we're going to calculate a total commission. Total commission. So I'm going to give myself a box for that. And then I know that's going to get split into two pieces, the listing side and the selling side. You know, just as a reminder, I'm just going to throw it out there. Remember, if we were really trying to keep up with, the listing side represents the seller. The selling side represents the buyer, right? Over there. And they want to know how much is the selling side commission. That's what the question asks us for. So I'm going to highlight or circle that for myself. And that's what they wanted. And now I'm going to just start filling in information. It says Thomas is a provisional broker affiliated with Ace Homes of the Triangle and has taken a new exclusive right to sell listing. So Thomas is over here on the listing side. And that's also where Ace Homes is. I think it's important to write that in there because they're going to start to give you all kinds of names and it helps to keep them where they're supposed to be. So Thomas and Ace Homes are the listing firm. And it says the seller agreed to pay a 5% total listing commission. Well, there's my 5% total commission right there. If Ace Homes compensates firms representing the buyer. So look at that verbiage. Ace Homes, which we know is the listing firm, compensates firms representing the buyer with 2.75%. So that 2.75% is going over here on the selling side because Ace Homes is on the listing side and they're paying or compensating or sharing 2.75%. Now I know, just basic math, I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. I want to see the whole picture as much as I possibly can. That 2.75 came out of the 5, so that means I must have, quick math here, 2.25 over here on the listing side. Now, remind myself which one they asked me for. They asked me for the selling side, which is right here. So I know that my answer, oh, and I didn't fill in one important piece of information. They gave me a sales price of $350,000, which goes all the way up here at the top. So I know when I've got low percentage numbers, so less than 10, 2.5, 2.75, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, small numbers. I know that's always going to be sales price and commission rate. Tie those two things together. So my math, and I'm going to type in the calculator, is going to look just like this. It's going to be $350,000 times 2.75%. And when I do that, 350,000 times 2.75%, I end up with $9,625 being paid on the selling side of that transaction. Now, I could have also calculated the listing side if I wanted to, but they didn't ask me for that. So I'm going to calculate the selling side, which is $9,625, and I'm going to move on with things. Let's take a look and see if number 3 is one that we can focus on. It says Zelda is purchasing a property in Raleigh as a first-time home buyer. She's hired Century 21 Triangle Group to represent her in the purchase, and broker Stephen is working with her. Stephen has been affiliated with Century 21 Triangle for 4 years and has an 80% commission split with his firm. Now, we haven't seen big numbers like that yet, right? It says Zelda purchases a property listed by Danny of Keller Williams Elite for a sales price of $800,000. Keller Williams Elite is charging the seller a 5% total listing commission on the sale, and Keller Williams has agreed they will compensate any cooperating firm who produces a buyer with 2% of the total sales price. Based on the above information, how much of a commission will Century 21 Triangle earn on the transaction? They've given us fluff. They've given us fluff, but that's okay. Find the question. If we find the question, we'll find out what we need to do. So I'm looking for the question. And here's where I see it. How? How much of a commission will Century Triangle 21 earn on the transaction? So let's map it out and see where they are so we can see how much they're going to earn. We know that every commission is going to start with a sales price up here at the top. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. And from there, we know we get a total commission, right? So here's our total commission. And then we know that that total commission is going to get split into two pieces, one called the listing side and the other called the selling side. Okay. And then look at the question again. How much of a commission will Century 21 Triangle earn? I don't know which one they are. So I don't know which one to highlight. I got to fill it in. I got to get more information. It says Zelda is purchasing. That doesn't help me. She's the buyer. Great for her. She's not one of the firms, so she's not going to get paid anything. Zelda is purchasing as a first-time home buyer. She has hired Century 21 Triangle Group. Look at those two statements and tie them together. Zelda is purchasing. She has hired Century 21 Triangle Group. Well, folks, they represent the buyer. And if you remember, we talked about the listing side represents the seller, and the selling side represents the buyer. So here's what we know. Century 21 must be over here on the buyer side. And broker Steven is working with her, so he's also over here on the buyer side, on the selling side of the transaction. So Steven's been affiliated with Century 21 Triangle for 4 years and has an 80% commission split with his firm. Well, okay, so I'll put him here. He's got 80% split with his firm. Good for him. If they didn't ask us for that, if they asked for that, we might have a problem. We'll see. Okay? Zelda purchased a property listed by Danny of Keller Williams Elite. So over here on the listing side, we've got Danny. And we've got Keller Williams Elite. So I'm just going to put KWE there. For a sales price of $800,000, well, I know where that goes. That goes all the way up here at the top. Okay. Keller Williams Elite is charging a 5% total listing commission. Well, I know where that goes. That goes right here in this box. And Keller Williams has agreed that they will compensate any cooperating firm who produces a buyer. So Keller Williams, who's right here, is going to compensate another firm. What that means to me is that the money is going in this direction, right? So they're compensating with 2%. That 2% goes to the selling side, folks. That's the buyer agent commission, the selling side of the transaction, which means, of course, this must be 3% over here on the other side because those two have to add up to the 5. Okay. Based on the above information, how much of a commission will Century 21 Triangle earn on the transaction? Now that question actually means something because I know they are right here. This is their side right here. And I'm dealing with Century 21 Triangle, the firm, the whole side will earn that 2%. It really doesn't matter that Stephen has an 80% split with them because that's internal to his firm. And they didn't ask us for how much money he was going to get paid. They asked how much money was going to his office, and the office gets the money before he does. And so we know that small commission numbers always go directly to the sales price. So you're just going to tie those two numbers together. So my math, what I'm actually going to type in my calculator, is going to look like this, and I'll write it down here at the bottom. It's going to be $800,000 times 2%. And if I do the math on that, I believe it's going to be 16,000, but I will check my math in my calculator just to be sure. It is $16,000. That is the commission to that side of the transaction. So these questions are often about taking apart what they give you, breaking it down into pieces that you can actually deal with, because otherwise it's too big. It's too much. It's too crazy. It's too crazy. All right. Now, when we look at number 4, I think we're going to have to do something different. But I'm going to look at it just the same. It says, Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim in the purchase of a home in Clayton. Kim is a provisional broker associate with Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe Realty, and she has a 55% commission split with her firm. That's a big number. Big numbers usually signal I got to do something different. But in the last question, we got away with it. So we'll keep reading. Upon closing of escrow on Bobby's new home, Kim was paid a commission out of her firm's total compensation. The listing firm in the transaction was charging a 6% listing commission and cooperating with selling brokerages by offering 45% of the total commission to cooperating firms. What was the amount earned by Kim? So there's my question right there. How much was earned? What was the amount earned by Kim? Not by her firm, not by her side, but by her personally, if the home sold for $306,000, $397,000. So I want to map out what we already know, because every transaction, every commission starts the same. We have a sales price at the top. And then from that sales price, we come down here to a total commission number. So we said that was the total commission. Okay. And then we know that that total commission is going to get split into two sides. We have the listing side and we have the selling side. Let's try to fill this in. See if we can make sense of it. It says Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim. Okay, well, I'm going to start right there. Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim. So I do know something already. I know that Kim is the buyer. And that's the selling side of the transaction. And I know, oh, so I'm sorry, not Kim is not the buyer. Kim is the buyer's agent. Bobby is the buyer. Sorry about that. And Kim is his buyer's agent. I know that because it says Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim in the purchase of a home in Clayton. It says Kim is a provisional broker associate with Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe Realty. So I can also put DCH Realty over here on that side. And it says Kim has a 55% split with her firm. So I'm going to put that 55% with her because that's not what her firm got in the transaction. That's what she's getting. So I'm going to put that number with her. Upon closing of escrow on Bobby's new home, Kim was paid a commission out of her firm's total compensation. Well, yeah, I guess that's who's going to pay her. The listing firm in the transaction was charging a 6% listing commission. So we've got a 6% total commission there. There it is right there. And the listing firm was cooperating with selling brokerages by offering 45%. So it sounds like to me that 45% is coming from the listing side to the selling side. So I'm going to put that 45% right here, which of course is a big number, but that's what they told me it was. And we haven't dealt with that before. And now we have a problem. Now we have a problem, because here's the problem I see right now. What we've always told you is these two numbers and these two boxes have to add up to that number right there. This is a different way commissions can be presented to you. So when you see one that's got big numbers like this, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I got to do something slightly different. Here's the thing though, it's not going to be very much different at all. It's not going to be terribly different at all. And so I'm going to leave what we've got right there, and I'm going to go back over to our slides, and we're going to talk about how you deal with questions like these. We're going to talk about how you deal with questions like these, but I wanted you to see that we've got a problem here with this question. So let's go back over to the slides for a second, and let's talk about, we can skip that example, splits that go one level further, one level deeper. It says here that means that most commissions will be split up into 4 pieces. And so far, we've only seen them split into 2 pieces. And the reason they're going to get split into 4 pieces, look at the statement above it. It says the commissions are split again between the office firm, broker in charge, however you want to say that, and the individual agents working on the transaction. In other words, everything you earn is paid to your firm first, and then your firm's going to take a piece of it. And so we need to see how much is left for each one of the individual agents after the firm has taken their piece. And that means now, instead of splitting the commission into 2 pieces, we're going to take each one of those pieces and split it again. So now we're going to get 4 pieces. Here's what we had before. We had this. And now we're just going to go one step further and have it look like this. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of a commission. That's what we're doing. And I've come up with a way to deal with that. Now, one of the keys that you're going to need to use this next little trick is when you see these large percentages. When you see these large percentages, it's almost always a sure sign that you're going to need to use something that I call the commission tree. And the commission tree is just as easy to use as what we've done so far, except when you do the splits, instead of them adding up to what was above them, like 6 and 4 and 2 add up to be 6, what you're going to see is 40% on one side and 60% on the other. 50% on one side and 50% on the other. 30% on one side and 70% on the other. If you notice, there's always a trend there. Every time when you do this method, those splits have to add up to 100%. Rather than them adding up to the small number that's above them, because they can't, because they're big numbers. They're going to add up to 100%. And your signal for that is going to be, oh, that's a big percentage number. That's 20%. That's 30%. That's 40%. That's 50%. That's too big. So it's got to add up to 100%. Here's what it looks like visually to add that other split level. And here's what I'm telling you is true about splitting these things out. These numbers right here, when you add them together, that's going to be 100%. These numbers right here, when you add them together, that's going to be 100%. These numbers right here, when you add them together, that's going to be 100%. Every time you take one box and split it into two with this tree, the two boxes have to add up. The two boxes that are side by side have to add up to be 100%, always. And your signal to use this method is when you see the big commission split percentages. And then we're going to talk about how that's going to help you in here in just a second, because it will help you. But for right now, let's focus on getting it mapped out. If you get it mapped out, you can do the ultimate math that they're asking you for. So the tree is just designed to draw you the picture. Once you realize that all the split levels add up each to 100%, you can get it all mapped out. Once you have filled it in, then we'll talk about the math. And that's what this right here is all about. We'll talk about the math here in just a second. But let's fill it in. Look at this question. And we're going to read it just like we have every one. We're going to read through, we're going to scan through, and we're going to look for the question first. It says Travis is listed in 123 Main Street and it sells for $400,000. That's information. With a 6% commission, that's also information. His firm, URE, cooperates with firms representing the buyer by splitting the total commission and offering 50% to selling firms who cooperate with them. Again, information, information, information. You're telling me, you're telling me, you're telling me. I'm going to wait until you ask me. Travis gets 75% of all commissions earned on his transactions in the firm. Again, you're telling me something. I can't do anything with that. Great. Finally, look at the last sentence there. Is a question. It says, what is Travis paid? Well, that doesn't mean anything to me right now because I haven't mapped the whole transaction out. But now I at least know what I'm going to be asked for. I'm going to be asked how much this guy Travis is getting paid. Well, first thing it tells me is Travis is listing. I can stop right there. Super important information. I need to start filling this thing in. So look at my tree over here to the right-hand side. We're going to look at my tree over here to the right-hand side. And just like we've done it before, the listing side always goes to the left, but now you see that we've split these into multiple pieces each way. So now when we get to the listing side here, we have two pieces to the listing side. We have the listing firm and the listing broker. Well, Travis is not a firm. Travis is a broker. So to me, Travis is the listing means Travis is right here. Travis is the listing broker. I'm going to label that. I'm going to fill it in. Travis is listing 123 Main Street and it sells for $400,000. Well, I know the sales price goes up here at the top. There's my $400,000 sales price with a 6% listing commission. That is the total commission, and that always goes right here, 6%. Nothing different than we've done before. His firm, Travis's firm, URE. So that they must be the listing firm. Let me go ahead and put them in here. URE. They are the listing firm. Just in case I need to know that, I've got it filled in. URE is the listing firm. There they are. They cooperate with firms representing the buyer. Well, here's the thing, folks. When you get down here to the bottom, the firms are divided off from each other. They're not cooperating with each other down here. They are cooperating right here. That's where the two firms are cooperating with each other. That's where they're working with each other. Once you get past that point, you're inside the firms. So when they're talking about the two firms cooperating right here, his firm, URE, cooperates with firms representing the buyer by splitting the total commission and offering 50% to selling firms. So I'm going to put that 50% right here on the selling side. That's what they told me. They're offering 50% to selling firms. So there it is, 50%. Here's the catch. I know if that's 50, this side also has to be 50, because in this tree, each one of those splits, wherever there's a level where the things are being split, they always have to add up to 100%. So 100 minus 50 leaves 50. 50-50 split. It's not important that you necessarily understand why that's the way I want it labeled the first shot off. It's important that you do it, because if you do it, you will see how much sense it makes and how easy the math becomes. If you're reluctant, you can miss all the questions you want. It's up to you. If you do it this way, you won't miss them. I would do it this way if I were you. So we've got 50% on each side. And then it says Travis gets 75% of all commissions earned on his transactions. So again, here's Travis, and I'll change back to red here just so we kind of keep it a little bit color coordinated. I'm going to put his 75% right here. Well, they didn't ask me about that, but I'm going to go ahead and fill it in. If his is 75%, his firm must be 25%, right? Let's fill these in a little bit better. Let's do it right here. 75% for him must be 25% for his firm, because again, this one also has to add up to be 100%. Here's the beauty of it. Look at the question. What is Travis paid? Now I'm going to put my highlighter back on here for just a second, and we're going to follow the money. Here's Travis. Now we're going to work our way back to the sales price from Travis. To get back to the sales price, I have to go through his 75%. I can't get back up that chart. I got to get back to here from there. So I have to go through that 75%. So I'm just marking myself now. So here's my path. And look at the next number I have to go through to get back to that sales price. And then I'm going to keep up my path and look at the next number I have to go through to get to that sales price. And finally, I'm connected back to the sales price. Once you've got that path connected, folks, you know exactly the math you're going to type into your calculator. You're just going to do it from the top down. And that's where this becomes so important. Look at that arrow. It's an arrow from the top down, and it says multiply. Top down, multiply. Top down, multiply. And you're going to multiply every number that we just highlighted there until you get to the bottom, until you get to where they ask you to be, until you get to Travis. And so you're going to start, switch back over to my pen here. You're going to start at the top, the first number, $400,000. And you're going to multiply. It says here multiply, so that's what I'm going to do. Times. Here's the next number you come to, 6%. And then I'm going to multiply because I'm going further down. Here's the next number, 50%. And then I'm going to multiply because I'm going down again. Here's the last number, 75%. It looks like a lot, but all you got to do is follow the path from the top to the bottom. And if you follow that path from the top to the bottom, give you a little bit cleaner version of it here with it all filled in. If you follow that path from the top to the bottom, you will end up with a commission to Travis of $9,000. And again, that's just starting here at the top, 400,000. And every time I come down a level, I hit multiply times 6%, times 50%, times 75%. And I'm just following that path all the way from the sales price. Oops, sorry, I'm going to do that as a highlighter. From the sales price down here to Travis. And I'm making a path. That's it. And I'm hitting every number along the way. and it will work every single time. Now, remember, the key to this method, the big tree, here's how you know when you need the big tree, is when you see numbers that look like this: 75%, 50%. Those are big numbers. And when you see those, you got to do the big tree. Big numbers, big tree. Small numbers, small tree. Okay? So, look at this one. It says Elmer is a buyer's agent. And again, I'm just scanning until I get to the question. Elmer's a buyer's agent working with EXP Real Estate and is working with his client to make an offer on a home listed by Sam of RE/MAX 1. RE/MAX 1 is charging the seller a 5% total commission on the sale and will retain 60% of the commission on their side, sharing the remainder with a cooperating firm. Again, you're giving me a lot of good information, but it's still giving me information. I haven't gotten to a question yet. If Elmer is paid 65% of his commissions from his office, what? There's a question word. How, what, when, where, why? What will he make from this $375,000 transaction? What will he make? What will Elmer make? And there's Elmer again. So we're always worried about Elmer. We want to know how much Elmer is going to make. So now let's start to fill this thing in, see if we can figure out who the heck Elmer is. Look at the first thing it says. Elmer is a buyer's agent. Right there. Elmer's a buyer's agent. Well, as far as I know, buyer's agents, aren't buyer's agents over on the selling side? So wouldn't Elmer be the selling broker? Wouldn't that be Elmer? I think so. I think that's right. So I think this is going to be Elmer right here. Right? That's where the buyer's agents are. And it says he works for EXP Real Estate, so I'm going to put EXP here. They're the selling firm. And he's working with his client to make an offer on a home listed by Sam of RE/MAX 1. Well, it says listed by Sam. So here's Sam. And here's his office, RE/MAX 1. I'm just going to put RE/MAX. RE/MAX 1 is charging the seller a 5% total commission. Well, I know that 5% goes up here at the top. Total commission always goes at the top, whether I'm using the big tree or the little tree. Always. And it's always going to be a small percentage number. That one is. Okay. It says RE/MAX 1 is charging the seller a 5% total commission on the sale and will retain 60% of the commission on their side. So RE/MAX 1 will retain, will keep, will hold 60%. Now remember, when we talk about this sharing here, it says RE/MAX 1 will retain, I want the highlighter here, they will retain 60%. This is the section where the firms cooperate with one another. That's where the cooperation happens. So when we look at that, we have to remember where we're working here. RE/MAX 1 is keeping 60%. Well, here's their 60%. Well, that means over here, we know what this number is going to be. 100 minus 60, this must be 40%. Because those two numbers in that split level always have to add up to be 100%. Have to be. Okay. It says if Elmer is paid 65% of his commissions, well, where's Elmer? Oh, there he is right here. He's at 65%. Well, again, here he is with his firm. They're in a box together. If he's at 65, they must be at 35%. I don't know if we're going to need that or not, but let's fill it in while we have it. What will he make from this transaction? What will Elmer make? Well, let me go back and look here. What will Elmer make? Where's Elmer? There's Elmer. Right here. There's Elmer. 65%. I need to change the color of that writing though, because you can't see it now. Let's switch it up here. Here's Elmer. There we go. We'll fill all this in with black because I know when I highlight it, it's going to disappear for you. That's the only thing about changing colors. Well, if Elmer's at 65% and we go through and we highlight his path from the sales price, oh, we didn't fill that in. Oh, we got to fill that in. We need that, don't we? Let's go back. Total silver 375. Got to have that. So now we want to make a path from the sales price of 375 to Elmer. And don't skip any numbers in between. So here's our path. Elmer goes up the ladder right here to that 40% number. And then we go up the ladder again to that 5% number. And then we go up the ladder and we're finally back at the sales price. And we're going to type it in from the top to the bottom because the arrow says we always go top to bottom and we always multiply. So we're going to start with the first number we see up there, which is 375,000. Oops, it's a highlighter. That's not going to work very well. A pen. 375 times, because we're coming down the level, 5% times, because we're working our way down 40%, times 65%. Follow the path that we highlighted. Follow that green path. And if you do that math, you're going to end up with Elmer earning $4,875. And again, all we did was we followed the path from the top up there, sales price of 375, all the way down here to Elmer, and we hit every number in between on the way down. 375 times 5% times 40% times 65%, and that tells us that Elmer makes $4,875 on that transaction. That's his pay. I bet now we can go back and do that other question on the worksheet. I think we can handle that question now. Let's go back and look at it. I'm going to read it again because I need to remind myself. It's been a while since I looked at it. It says, Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim in the purchase of a home in Clayton. So we've already got Bobby the buyer over here on the selling side. We got that labeled correctly. Okay. It says Kim is a provisional broker associate with Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe Realty, and she has a 55% commission split with her firm. Big number. Big number tells me I need a big tree. My tree's not big enough here. My tree's not big enough. Let me get rid of what I've got right here, and let's get this tree as big as we need it to be. Let's go ahead and split this into selling agent or selling broker, which is the same thing as a buyer's agent, and the selling firm or office, right? And then let's go ahead and split this one into the listing agent or broker and the listing firm. Big commission split percentages get big trees. Now let's start reading it again. Bobby Buyer is represented by Kim. So Bobby the buyer is represented by Kim. This is Kim right here. There she is. In the purchase of a home in Clayton. Kim is a provisional broker with Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe Realty. So she works for DCH Realty right here. That's the selling firm. And she has a 55% commission split with her firm. Don't overly complicate that. Don't try to sit there and figure out which one is which. The number they give you, that's the agent split, period. She has a 55% commission split with her firm, so she gets 55%. Well, we know that if she gets 55, then Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe must be keeping 45% because those two have to add up to be 100% always. Upon closing of escrow on Bobby's new home, Kim was paid a commission out of her firm's total compensation. The listing firm in the transaction was charging a 6% listing commission, and cooperating with selling brokerages by offering 45% of the total commission. Now, we had already filled all that in from before, but here's my 6% total commission right here. Remember, I already had that. And I already had my 45% here. But look, I can figure out something else now. Look at this. If that's 45, I know the listing side now must be 55%. See, we just learned how to do that. We can fill that in now. Whether we need it or not, fill it in. You know how to do it, fill it in. Okay. What was the amount earned by Kim to the nearest dollar if the home sold for $306,397? So we have a sales price of $306,397. And they want to know how much was Kim paid. So we have to get from here to Kim. Draw the path. Go down. We have to go through that number. When you do the big tree, you follow the whole tree. When you do the little tree, you go straight back to the sales price. But when you do the big tree, you got to follow the whole tree. And remember, you do the big tree when you have big numbers. That's how you're going to tie it together. Big percentage numbers, 35%, 45%, 55% means you got to have the big tree. And that means you're going to follow it all the way down. You got multiple steps. Okay. So 306,397 times 6%. And then we want to get to Kim. We can't get to Kim by going left. We got to go right. So we got to go through that number. Then we got to go down again. And we got to get to that number. And remember, every time we go down a level, we multiply. We're going to multiply our way from the top to the bottom. So here's what our math's going to look like on this one. It's going to look like 306,397 times 6% times 45% times 55%. And let's see what Kim's going to get paid here. 306,397 times 6% times 45% times 55%. Kim's going to get paid $45.49.9954. Of course, it said to the nearest dollar right there. So that looks like $45.50 to me, to the nearest dollar. $4,550. Follow the tree. Follow the tree. All right, let's see what we got on the next one here. It says Renee is a broker with Sunrise Realty who earns a commission check from her firm for her representation of Sunny Seller. Again, I'm just reading, trying to figure out what they want to know. Earns a commission check from her firm for her representation of Sunny the seller in a transaction. Renee executed a seller agency or listing agreement in which the seller was to pay Sunrise Realty a 5% brokerage commission. So far, I only need the small tree because I've seen small numbers. And Renee has a 40% split of all commissions earned with her firm. Right there. Probably going to need a big tree. Sunrise Realty has a firm policy of paying a cooperating selling firm 60% of all listing commissions. When Sally purchased a home listed by Sunrise Realty for $981,250 with the help of a buyer representative, what was Renee paid? Here's the other thing that tells you need the big tree. They want you to go past what the firm's getting paid. They want you to go all the way down to what the individual agent's getting paid. The only way I can do that is through the big tree. If they want to know just what the firm got paid, you can stay up, small tree, okay? But here we go. We know, here's our question. What was Renee paid? They want to go all the way down to the bottom, all the way to the agent level. So we're going to map it out here. We're going to start with our sales price at the top. And of course, we know from that sales price, we get our total commission. Okay. And then we're going to split that total commission into a listing side and a selling side. And we need the big tree because it wants to go all the way down to Renee. So we're going to split each one of these again. And we're going to go to a listing agent. or listing broker, same thing. Listing salesperson, all means the same thing. To, and the listing firm or office. And then over here, we're going to have the selling agent or selling firm, rather. I usually put the firm all the way over there. It doesn't really matter which you do. And the selling agent. Okay. Now we're ready. Renee is a broker with Sunrise Realty who earns a commission check from her firm for her representation of Sunny the seller. So Renee, representation of Sunny seller. Renee executed a listing agreement with the seller. So that tells me Renee is on the listing side. Renee is right here. She is the listing agent. I'm piecing all that together from what I've got. It says Renee executed a listing agreement in which the seller was to pay Sunrise Realty a 5% brokerage commission. Okay. Oh, and by the way, we could put Sunrise here. That's Renee's firm. So we got a 5% total commission. It says, and Renee has a 40% split of all commissions earned with her firm. So Renee has got 40% of everything earned down here, which means her firm, Sunrise, is getting 60%, greedy folks that they are. Okay. It says Sunrise Realty has a firm policy of paying cooperating selling firm. So remember, here's where the two firms are cooperating with each other. Up here at this first step down from the total commission, middle of the road. That's where the two firms are cooperating with each other. And I'm going to read that again. Sunrise Realty, which is the listing firm, has a firm policy of paying cooperating selling firms 60% of all listing commissions. So they're paying the selling firm 60%. So that 60% is going to go over here, which we know now means 40% must be over here on the listing side. It says when Sally purchased a home listed by Sunrise Realty for $981,250. So here's my sales price, $981,250. With the help of a buyer representative, what was Renee paid? Well, if you've mapped it out now, it's really easy to see. Okay, here's Renee, here's my sales price, and here's my path to get down to Renee, which means I've got to go through 5%, I've got to go through 40%, and I've got to go through 40%. All three of those to get to Renee. So here's what my math is going to look like in my calculator. I'm going to type in 981,250 times 5% times 40% times 40%. And if we do that, 981,250 times 5% times 40% times 40%. Renee is going to get paid $7,850 for her troubles in representing that seller. That is Renee's share of that commission. Once you've filled it in, following it's easy. I hope you're starting to see that. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one and see what we can do with it, if anything, here. It says, Elmer is selling his home so he can afford the down payment on his new home in Chapel Hill. He must first use the sales proceeds to pay off his existing mortgage balance of $287,450. This seems like a different question, but I'm going to read it and find that's information. He also will owe $3,850 in outstanding property taxes, as well as $400 in attorney's fees. Elmer has agreed to compensate the listing firm listing his home with a total listing commission of 6% of the sales price. Based on this information, how much will Elmer net at closing? Well, there's my question. How much will Elmer net at closing? Who is Elmer? Elmer's a seller. This is not a commission question. This is a seller question. How much will the seller get? It's a different question. It's a different question that we need to talk about. So I'm going to go back to the slides. I'm going to go back to the slides and we're going to talk about this question. It's called a seller net question. And there's a couple ways we can ask about seller nets. So first of all, let's talk about this word net right here. What net just means after expenses. After all expenses have been paid. So when sellers go to closing, they very rarely do they just walk out with a check for the full amount of the sales price. It would be wonderful for them if it worked that way, but it doesn't. And it might be wonderful for them, but it would suck for us because we wouldn't be getting paid. Hello? They're paying us. And the last thing we want to do is give them all the money and then try to collect the money from them. No way. No. You take the commission, you take my commission out of their money before you give them their money. That way I don't have to worry about getting paid. And that's just one of the expenses that we need to take away from the seller. And here's the terminology I want you to start to become comfortable with. Expenses equal debits. Think of looking at your account balances in your online banking. You see debits and credits. Credits are monies that are coming into your account. It's things you like. Credits make you smile. When somebody gives you extra credit, you're happy. When you get credit for doing something, it's awesome. Debits suck. Debits, expenses, bills, taxes, everything I don't want to pay, but I have to. Everything that takes money away from me, that's a debit. When we go to closing, and this is really a closing question, and this is the first time we've dealt with math around this time of closing. Remember, closing is the end of the transaction. It's the goal. It's the destination. It's why the seller hired a listing firm in the first place. Help me find a buyer so we can get to closing. It's very important for us to be able to sit down with that seller and say to them, here's what we think you will net. Here's what you will take away at the closing. It's the cash they'll walk out the door with. It's the amount of the cashier's check that they will leave the closing with. Sellers need to know that amount of money. It's an important amount of money to them. Now, the way we're going to handle that is by creating two lists, a good list and a bad list. The good list is credits. The bad list are debits. Credits are good, debits are bad. Simple as that. And once we have two lists, add them up. Add all your debits together, and then add all your credits together. And then, once you have a total of your debits and a total of your credits, we are going to be able to subtract the two, and that is the seller net, or the net cash at closing. That is the number that the seller can expect to see when they walk out of that closing. So it's just a list of, here are my debits, here are my credits. So let's say I have debits that total $250,000, and I have credits that total $300,000. If I subtract those two, my cash net from me, my seller, is $50,000. Those are just hypothetical numbers, but that's the way a seller net is going to work. So the key, because the math is super easy, it's just subtracting. The key is making sure you know which things are debits and which things are credits. And that's pretty easy to understand from the seller's perspective. because they pretty much only get one credit. For the most part, they get one credit. They get the purchase price, but it's a big credit. It's a really big credit. But then they just get nickel and dimed and eaten to death by all these little expenses that we have at closing until they finally get down to a net amount. So let's take a look at one of those. It says Chris is selling his home with the help of XYZ Real Estate, whom he has hired and agreed to pay a 5% listing commission on the sale. At closing, Chris will need to pay off his outstanding loan balance of $282,530, as well as $2,400 for his share of the annual property taxes. Also, excise taxes. Remember those from Chapter 5? Excise taxes will be calculated at the standard rate. If the home sells for $315,000, how much can Chris expect to receive from the closing attorney after the recordation of the buyer's deed? Well, we finally get to a question. I mean, so long-winded stuff, but here it is finally. It says, how much can Chris expect to receive? That's what tells me we're doing a seller net cash, right? How much money can he expect to receive? And we know, here's what that means for us. Anytime we have seller net cash and how much money he can expect to receive, we need debits and we need credits. We need to keep them separate. We need a list of debits and we need a list of credits. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take these numbers they've given us and we're just going to put them in two lists. This is the same question. I just kind of scrunched it down so you can see the two lists here. Look at, I'm going to highlight, do some little color-coded highlighting here for you here. Let's talk about the credits. Well, as far as I know, that seller's going to get one credit, what they sell it for, the purchase price. That's the only credit they have. There's their whole list of credits. Boom, done. And so their whole total credits, $315,000. Separate list, debits, and keep them in two lists. This will get more complex later in the class. Don't just try to start throwing numbers in the calculator and think, ooh, I got this, this is easy. No, two lists, debits and credits. You need both lists. You will need both lists later on. There's a method to my madness. There always is, or almost always is. So let's look at the debits here. Here are my debits. It says Chris is selling his home with the help of XYZ Real Estate, who has hired and agreed to pay a 5% listing commission. Well, that's a debit, but I don't know how much. Yeah. At closing, Chris will need to pay off his outstanding loan balance of $282,530. That's a debit for sure. He's got to pay that. It's an expense. So there's that number right there. It's already brought over there for you, $282,530. It says as well as $2,400 for his share of the property taxes. Well, there's my $2,400 in property taxes. It says excise taxes will be calculated at the standard rate. How many of you remember the standard rate for excise taxes? Hope we do. Isn't it just the sales price? So $315,000 divided by 500. And that's where we get $630 in excise taxes. Check the math here, make sure that's right. 315,000 divided by 500. 630, remember that's paid by the seller. Told you it was going to be important that you knew that was paid by the seller. That is a seller expense at closing. So that's where that 630 comes from. So where did the commission come from? Here's another expense, and I don't know where that number came from. Well, we've been calculating commission. We said that commission is always equal to the sales price, which is $315,000, times the commission rate, which is 5%. And I'm going to check my math again, make sure that's right. $315,000 times 5%. That's $15,750 in commission. That's all the debits. Once I have them, I'm going to total them up. And that's where this number comes from. I'm ready now to do my seller net. I'm ready now to see how much that seller is going to net on that transaction. And that's exactly what we do on the next screen. Again, same question. I just scrunched it down so we had room for everything. I haven't changed anything. It's the same exact question. I know my total credits are $315,000. I know my total debits are $301,310. And if I subtract those two numbers, which is what I've done over here, that tells me that Chris is only going to get a check for $13,690 when he closes that property. $13,690. That's it, folks. That's all he's going to see. That's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, so now we want to take a look back at this question and see if we can tackle it now that we've talked about this idea of a seller net. It says Elmer is selling his home so he can afford the down payment on his new home in Chapel Hill. He must first use the sales proceeds to pay off his existing mortgage balance of $287,450. He also will owe $3,850 in outstanding property taxes, as well as $400 in attorney's fees. Elmer has agreed to compensate the firm listing his home with a total listing commission of 6% of the sales price. Based on this information, how much will Elmer net at closing? And we highlighted that because we said that was the question. How much will Elmer net if he sells for $443? So when we see that, how much will Elmer net? We know we're going to have two lists. We're going to have a list of debits, which are bad things, and we're going to have a list of credits, which are good things. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to see where to put each one of these things. Starting over again. Elmer's selling his home so he can afford the down payment on his new home in Chapel Hill. He must first use the sales proceeds to pay off his existing mortgage balance of $287,450. So this $287,450, that's a number I have to deal with. He has to pay off. That sounds like a debit to me. It sounds like a bill. So that's $287,450 as a debit. It says he also will owe $3,850 in outstanding property taxes. That sounds like a debit to me as well. $3,850 in property taxes, as well as $400 in attorney's fees. So he still owes $400 in attorney's fees. That's a debit. He's not going to get credit for attorney's fees. He's going to have to pay the attorney's fees. It says Elmer has agreed to compensate the firm listing his home with a total listing commission of 6% of the sales price. So I'm just going to make a note here. I need 6% of the sales price as a debit. I don't know what that is yet, but I know I need it. Based on this information, how much will Elmer net at closing if he sells the home for $443? Well, there's finally our only credit here. $443,000. That also gives me the number I need to calculate my commission over here, because that's going to be 443,000 times 6%. And so if I do that math, 443,000 times 6%, I get 26,580 for commission. And I'm going to add all those up. So 287,450 plus the $3,850 plus the $400 plus the 26,580. I've got 318,280. Now, I will tell you this. I like to write that down and take the time to do it again, check myself again, just to make sure I typed everything in correctly. 287,450 plus 3,850, because it's really easy to make a mistake when you're doing this many things in a calculator, plus 400 plus 26,580. Yep, 318,280. I got the same thing twice. Now there's nothing to do over here on my credit side. So here's what my math looks like. It's my total credits, which is 443, minus my total debits. So my math just looks like 443,000 minus 318,280. And if I type that in my calculator, it looks like to me, Elmer can expect a net at closing $124,720 is his net at closing. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one here. See what they want us to do. So Sandra is selling her parents' home in Mebane and wishes to know how much she will net. Well, there it is. Wishes to know how much she will net from the sale after all expenses are paid. As part of liquidating their estate, she contracts with Mebane Exclusive Properties to list the home at a 5% commission rate. Her parents have an outstanding reverse mortgage balance, which is just the same as a mortgage as far as paying it off goes. Outstanding property taxes of $2,300, and there are attorney fees totaling $2,100 must be paid. Based on this information, again here, what will Sandra's net proceeds be if she sells the property for $418? So we know we're going to have debits. We know we're going to have credits. Let's talk about each one. Okay. Sandra selling her parents' home in Mebane, which is now how much she will net from the sale after all expenses are paid. As part of liquidating their estate, just means selling. Liquidating just means selling. She contracts with Mebane Exclusive Properties to list the home at a 5% commission rate. That 5% commission rate is going to be a debit. So I'm just going to make a note here, 5% commission. I don't know how much that is yet, but if I make a note for it for myself, I won't forget it. Her parents have an outstanding reverse mortgage balance of $118,627. So any mortgage balance, any liens have to be paid off. So that just becomes a debit, $118,627. Pay it off. Outstanding property taxes of $2,300. Again, got to be paid off. And their attorney fees totaling $2,100, which must be paid. Again, that's a debit, $2,100. Based on this information, what will Sandra's net proceeds be if she sells the property for $418,000? Well, there's finally a credit for us, $418,000. And that gives us the number we need to do our 5% commission over here, because that's going to be $418,000 times 5%. So when we do that, 418 times 5%, that's $20,900. So I'm just going to put that down here, $20,900 in commission. And I know I need to add each one of these up, right? So always takes more time to add up my debits. I'm going to add these up twice just to make sure. 2,300, 118. 627. Sometimes I go from the bottom to the top and then from the top to the bottom. All right, I come up with 143,927. But I'm going to check it again. 118,627 plus 2,300 plus 2,100 plus 20,900. 143,927. I got the same number. And so now here's my total math. I got total credits of $418,000 minus total debits of $143,927. And that's going to be cash at closing for the seller of $274,073. $274,073 is going to be the net cash at closing for that seller. Okay. Number 8 says Travis is purchasing a home in Chapel Hill with Diane of Keller Williams as his buyer representative. The home is listed by HPW for a 7% total commission, and HPW splits their brokerage fees evenly between the listing side of the transaction and the selling side of the transaction. If Diane has an agreement paying her 75% of all her commissions earned, what is her firm share of the selling commission? There's finally a question. What is her firm's share of the selling commission for the transaction if the home sells for $472? So this is big tree, big numbers, big tree. I know we're going all the way down to a split between Diane and her firm. So all of that tells me I need a big commission tree. So I'm going to go ahead and map that out for myself. Let me get this on a different page. I got plenty of room here. I'm going to map this out for myself. And I know I'm going to start with a sales price. And I know from that sales price, I'm going to have a total commission. I'll put that in the box right there. And I know from that total, I'm going to have the listing side and the selling side. And then I'm going to split those again, and we're going to have the listing agent and the listing firm. And then over here, we're going to do the same side this way. This is going to be the selling firm or selling agent. Doesn't matter which way you do it, as long as you get the firm and the agent. And so here is the selling agent. Okay. Got everybody in there. Everybody's in the pool, ready to go. Now let's look at the question. And let's talk about how we're going to split this thing up. A little bit bigger than that. It says, Travis is purchasing a home in Chapel Hill with Diane of Keller Williams as his buyer representative. So Diane of Keller Williams is his buyer representative. So here's what that tells me. Diane is right here. She is the selling agent, which means Keller Williams is the selling firm. Because remember, this is the buyer side of the transaction, and this is the seller side of the transaction, right? It says the home is listed by HPW. So here's the listing firm is HPW for a 7% total commission. So there's my 7% total. And HPW splits their brokerage fees evenly between the listing side and the selling side. So that's that middle level we're splitting between the two firms. And remember, in the big tree, all the splits have to add up to be 100%. So splitting evenly is going to be 50% on each side. If Diane has an agreement paying her 75% of all her commissions earned, so there's her 75%, which means her firm over here must be at 25%. What is her firm's share of the selling commission? Oh, interesting. We want to know the firm's share, how much the firm is going to get paid. If the home sells for $472,000, so here's my sales price of $472,000. So we have to be able to get from here, from this sales price down to Keller Williams. Follow the tree down, we're going to have to go through 7%. Go down one more level, we got to go to the right. That takes us through that 50%. Down one more level, and over here to the firm, that takes us through 25%. So what we're going to type in the calculator is going to look like this. Start at the top, $472,000 times 7% times 50% times 25% equals, and when I do that math, 472 times 7% times 50% times 25%. Looks like Keller Williams is going to make $4,000. $130 off of that transaction. And if you get it mapped out, it's really pretty simple to follow it. That's the goal. Map it out and you'll be able to follow it. Okay. Number 9, put this on a different page. Number 9 says Travis sells his home for $376,801.51. The home is listed with URE at a 6% total commission. He must pay off his outstanding mortgage balance of $220,000, closing costs of $500,000, and a mechanics lien of $4,200. He also must pay excise taxes at the standard rate. What amount should he expect to receive after closing as net proceeds? There's finally my question. What amount should he expect to receive as net proceeds? When I see that question, I know I'm going to have my 2 columns. I'm going to have my debits and I'm going to have my credits for my seller. I'm only looking at the seller's debits and credits, and we're going to start the hunt here. It says Travis sells his home for $376,801.51. That's a credit. $376,808.51. There's his sales price. Okay. The home is listed with URE at a 6% total commission. I'm going to go ahead and circle that. Done it. At a 6% total commission. Well, that's money he's going to have to pay. So I'm going to put a note here that I need a 6% commission. Actually, I don't even need a note for that. I can go ahead and do it. I got the sales price, right? That's going to be $376,808.51 times 6%. So let me do that. $376,808.51 times 6%. I got $22,608. So we're going to go $22,608 and about 51 cents. Somewhere right around there. If you got 50 cents, if you got 52 cents, it's all right. Okay. $22,608 and about 51 cents for commission. Says he must pay off his outstanding mortgage balance of $220,000. That's a debit. $220,000, a big debit. He's got to pay closing costs of $5,000. There's another debit. And a mechanics lien of $4,200. Says he also must pay excise taxes. So that's a seller paid thing. That's a seller debit. So excise taxes, remember, are going to be the sales price, which is $376,808.51 divided by 500. So that's $376,808.51 divided by 500. That's $753 and about 62 cents in excise taxes. But if you remember, when we talk about excise taxes, thing to remember about the state of North Carolina is they can't deal with that right there. They can't deal with that change. And so they're going to make you round that either to 753 or 754, and everything works in their favor. So we don't go down to 753, we go up to 754. So the excise taxes are going to be 754 on this thing. So we're going to be able to total up our debits. And again, I'm going to check these a couple of times. I got 22,608.57 plus 220,000 plus 5,000 plus 4,200 plus 754. I got 252. 562 and 57 cents. Now I'm going to check that again just to be sure. I'm going to start from the bottom this time. 754 plus 4,200 plus 5,000 plus 220,000 plus 22,608, 51, just to be sure it's the same number. 252, 562, and 51 cent. 51, not 57. And if you get a different number, key it again. Make sure you get the same number twice. Make sure you've keyed it to get the same number twice. Now my credits is easy because it's only the one number. So once I've got my total debits and credits, I'm ready to do my math over here. It's going to be 376, 808, and 51 cent. Minus 252, 562, and 51 cent. 7, 6, 8, 0, 8, 51. I've got total net cash at closing of $124,246. Debits and credits equals the seller net. All right. Let's look at number 10. It says Lisa is selling her home with the help of a real estate brokerage firm and has signed an exclusive right to sell listing agreement promising a 6% total commission on the sale. The sellers have an outstanding mortgage of $218,500. Property taxes owed of $3,850 and must pay attorney's fees of $200. Based on this information, what can the sellers expect to net on the sale? There's a question right there. Finally, what can the sellers expect to net on the sale? If the property sells for $445,000 and they're expected to pay state excise taxes on the sale. So seller net is going to be debits and credits. So here are my debits. Start a list for my seller. And my credits for my seller. Start a list. Okay. Lisa is selling her home with the help of a real estate brokerage firm and has signed an exclusive right to sell listing agreement promising a 6% total commission. Well, that's going to be a debit for the seller. So I'm going to put it over here, 6% commission. And the reason I'm just putting a note for myself is I have no idea how much that is because I haven't come across the sales price yet. The sellers have an outstanding mortgage of $218,500. Well, that's definitely a debit and doesn't require any math. So $218,500. Property tax owed of $38.50. Well, there's another debit, $38.50. And must pay attorney's fees of $200. There's that. That's a debit. $200 on attorney's fees. Based on this information, what can the sellers expect to net on the sale if the property sells for $445,000? Oops, wrong color. Got a green one there. $445,000 is a credit. Because it's my sales price. They're getting credited for the sales price if you're the seller. The sales price is a good thing if you're the seller. And they're expected to pay state excise taxes on the sale. Okay, well, state excise taxes is another debit. And we know state excise taxes, that's going to be the sales price, which is $445,000 divided by 500 equals 445,000 divided by 500. I got 890 in excise taxes, and we need to go back now and take care of that 6% commission note that we made for ourselves. So we got 890 here for excise taxes. Then the commission is going to be 445,000 times 6%. That's $26,700 in commission. And now we can total all those things up. We've got all the numbers taken care of. So what's our total debits and our total credits? Well, we know our total credits. That's an easy one, right? Total credits is the 445. The total debits a little bit more work. So we're going to add those together a couple times to make sure we're good. 218,500 plus 3,850 plus 200 plus 890. Okay, I get 250, 140 on my first go. I'm gonna check them again. I usually check them bottom to top the second time. 890 plus 200 plus 3,850 plus 218, 500 plus 26,700, 250, 140, the same number. Looks good to me. So my total math is going to be 445,000 in credits minus $250,140 in debits. I've got $194,860 as what the seller should expect to net on that transaction. $194,860 is what your expected seller net should be on question number 10. Again, it's just when you see that, what can the sellers expect to net? You need debits and credits. You need debits and credits. Okay. Let's look at number 11. I'll go ahead and put these on 2 different pages so we got plenty of room. Number 11 says, Al has listed a piece of vacant land for sale with a commission agreement that calls for 5% commission to be paid on the first $3 million of the sales price, 7% commission to be paid on any. Wait a minute now. Whoa, back the bus up. I thought they said a 5% commission. And that says 7% commission on any portion of the sales price between $3 million and $4 million, and then 10% commission paid on any portion it exceeds $4 million. I have never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. Y'all have never seen anything like this. But I do see a question. It's asking, what will the total commission be? Here's the problem. I see 5% commission. I see 7% commission. I see 10% commission. And you're right. You've not seen anything like that yet. But you're about to. We're going to fix that. So we'll go back over to the slides. And this is called a multiple rate commission or a tiered commission, not tiered like teardrops, but tiered like TIERED, tiered like tears on a wedding cake. It just means levels. There are different levels within one transaction. Anytime you get multiple commission rates, this is how you're going to handle it. This is somewhat common in commercial transactions, and they might ask you about this on the test. Here's the thing. It's really just 3 separate commissions. There's a portion at this rate, and then there's a portion at this rate, and it could be 2 separate. We could say, okay, for the purchase price up to $1 million, you get 5%. For any amount that goes over $1 million, you get 7%, but only on the amount above $1 million. Not on the whole thing, just on the amount above $1 million. So that's 2 pieces. We could do 3 pieces. What you're going to do is just separate them into separate commissions and then add them together. You're just going to deal with each one separately and then add them together. So when you look at a question like this, let's read through the question, then I'm going to show you visually how I would answer a question like this. It says, Seth has taken a listing on a large tract of land. The owner has agreed to compensate Seth's office with the following commission structure. A 5% commission will be paid on any portion of the sales price up to $3 million. For any portion of the sales price between $3 million and $5 million, a 7% commission will be paid. If the sales price exceeds $5 million, a 10% commission will be paid on the portion of the price exceeding $5 million. Not on the whole thing, just on the amount exceeding $5 million. It says the property sold for $5,400,000. Based on this information, what's the total compensation? Let me show you how I like to think of a question like this. I'm going to do this. I like to think of the total compensation almost like a pie chart, right? And I know, here's what I know about the transaction. I know that the thing is going to sell for $5,400,000. That's what they told me right here. So here's my total sales price. Now I'm just going to start putting lines in here where they tell me these goals are. So I'm going to read through it. It says a 5% commission will be paid on any portion of the sales price up to $3 million. So let's say here's $3 million. Right there. So imagine there's a line right there. And it says for any portion of the sales price between 3 and 5, a 7% commission will be paid. So imagine if 5 million is right here. So there's another line right here. Here's what we know. They told me that down here it's going to be 5%. They told me that in the middle here it's going to be 7%. And they told me that up here in the top it's going to be 10%. Let's do it with a little bit of color coding here. Let's talk about it with some color. Let's say 5% will be paid on any portion of the sales price up to $3 million. So here's the portion of the sales price up to $3 million. All of that gets us paid 5%. We get paid 5% of the amount of money in that box. And then it says we get paid for any portion between 3 and 5, we get a 7% commission. So here's between 3, so starting at 3 and then going up to 5, basically right there, we get a 7% commission. Okay. And then it tells us we got this almost like bonus at the top. If the sales price exceeds 5 million, which it does, I told us down here, 5.4, a 10% commission will be paid on the portion of the price exceeding 5 million. So not on the whole thing. It would be nice if we got 10% on the whole thing. And trust me, that's going to be one of the gotcha answers that they try to give you on the test. We're not getting 10% on the whole transaction. We're just getting 10% on the amount that exceeds 5 million. Here's what we really have, folks. We really have 3 separate transactions. And that's what we're going to do. We're simply going to figure out how much money is in each one of these boxes and then do those commission percentages. So I'm going to label it on here, and we'll go back to a pen, a red pen, and I'm going to label how much money. If we look at the yellow box, how much of the sales price is covered in that box? It looks like to me that's $3 million, right? The first 3 million on any portion up to 3 million is in that yellow box. That's $3 million. And then it says for any portion of the sales price between 3 and 5. So we can't count the first 3. We already counted that in the yellow box. We're talking about just what's in the blue box. So what's more than 3 but less than 5? Well, that's $2 million, right? 5 minus 3. Because you're going all the way up to here, which is 5, but you didn't start at 0. You started at 3. So if you're going from 3 to 5, how far did you go? That's $2 million in that box. $2 million in that box. And then up here in the top box, it says for any portion that exceeds 5 million. Well, we barely exceeded 5 million. We're not getting paid 10% on the whole thing. The first 5 million we've already taken care of. We're only getting paid for that last 400,000 up here. Now we can do something with this. Because essentially we have a 5% commission on $3 million down there at the bottom. In the middle, we have a 7% commission on $2 million. And at the top, we have a 10% commission on the last 400,000. So, oops, I didn't mean to do that. So when you look at this, what you're going to do is you're going to take these pieces separately. You're going to say over here, you're going to say, okay, well, 300,000, or 3 million rather, I'm sorry. One more zero, times 5%. And that gives you 3 million, I think it's 150,000, but I'm going to check it. That's 150,000 for the yellow box. And then the middle box is $2 million worth of purchase price times 7%. That's $140,000 in commission in the yellow box. And then in the green box, we've got only $400,000 in purchase price times 10%. And that's 40,000. And what are we going to do? We are going to simply add those together. We're going to add them all three together. And so if we say 150,000 plus 140,000 plus 40,000, we got $330,000 in commission on that transaction. Total. So think of it like 3 separate boxes and do them individually and then add them together. So let's look at the one that was over on our slide here, and I'm gonna, or our worksheet rather. I'm gonna erase these highlights real quickly and just leave the question highlighted. What will the total commission be? Okay. So look, I'm gonna draw my same visual picture again. Here's my visual of the transaction, and it says it sells for $4,500,000. So that's all the way at the top, $4,500,000. And now I'm gonna start filling in my blocks along the way. It says Al has listed a piece of vacant land for sale with a commission agreement that calls for a 5% commission to be paid on the first $3 million of the sales price. Okay. So here's 3 million. And it said that we're going to do that one at 5%. And then it says 7%. Oh, I guess I'll go ahead and highlight that over here. 5% on the first 3 million. And then it says 7% on anything between 3 and 4. 7% between 3 and 4. So I'm going to put another line in here. So here's my $4 million line. We said that was going to be blue. And that one was at 7%. And then it gives me the bonus zone up at the top and a 10% commission to be paid on any portion of the sales price that exceeds 4 million. So that's going to be up here at the top, in the top box, and that's going to be all the way up at 10%. Love to get up in that zone. Now, that does not mean we're going to get paid 10% on the whole sales price. We got to break this down into 3 pieces. So let's talk about each one of these 3 pieces. Let's talk about this 5% piece right here. This is 5% of $3 million. So I'm going to type in my calculator, 3 million times 5%. Okay, so 3 million times 5%. That's $150,000 in commission down here. Oops. 150,000 for that portion. Now, 7%, but it's not 7% of 4. It's 7% of the gap between 3 and 4. So how much of a gap is there between 3 and 4? It's $1 million. So it's $1 million. I didn't write that. Sorry, I erased my highlight there. It's going to be 1 million. There we go. Times 7%, which is $70,000. And then up here in the green, it's certainly not the whole 4.5 million at 10%. It just says the amount above this $4 million line up to the purchase price of $4,500,000. So it looks like to me there's $500,000 in this green box. And so that's times 10%, which is going to give me over here $50,000. So I got 50,000 plus 70,000 plus 150,000. That looks like $270,000 in commission to me. $270,000 total commission on that transaction. Nice day if you can get it. Not a bad deal. All right, I think we have one more like that. Number 12, which I believe is the last one in the packet. It is. Your torture is almost done. It says, a seller of a commercial warehouse wishes to reward his listing agent for bringing a higher offer price. In order to accomplish this, the seller has agreed to pay a 6% commission rate on the first $1 million of sales price and an 8% commission rate for any amount of sales price that exceeds $1 million. The property is listed for $2,420,000 and sells for full price. What is the total commission owed by the seller? Well, here's what I see. I've got two commission rates, 6% and 8%. So I know I've got to do this kind of structured commission thing. So I'm going to draw my graph here and let's find out where the divisions are. It says I've got one commission here, 6% on the first 1 million. So I'm going to put me a line right here that says 1 million. And then it tells me I got 8% on any sales price that exceeds 1 million. Okay. Oh, and I should have, and that goes all the way up to 2,420,000. So I know the number up here is 2,420,000. Now I need to fill in those numbers here. I know the bottom one, the purple one down here, is at 6%. Okay. I know the blue one is at 8%. The question is, how much money is in each box? Well, the 6% one's easy. It says on the first $1 million. So there's 1 million in there. So that's 1 million times 6%. $60,000. And then the blue box says for everything above $1 million, but it sells for $2,420,000. But it's not $2,420,000 because we didn't start at zero. We started at $1 million for everything above $1 million up to the sales price of $2,420,000. So it's actually this minus this. So the amount up here is $1,420,000 times 8%. 1,420,000 times 8%. That's $113,600 in that box. If we add them together, that's $173,600 in total commission on that transaction. $173,600 in total commission on that transaction. And that's how you do commissions that have multiple splits, multiple levels, or tiered commissions, multiple rate commissions. And that is all of the commission calculation math that I think you're likely to see on the test. If you can do those questions, I think you're going to be just fine calculating commissions and calculating commission splits and handling that all the way through. So, at your own pace, go back through it, stop, rewind, watch again, fast forward if you feel comfortable with a particular section, but you've always got this reference to come back to so that you can make sure you understand exactly what you're doing and get these questions right on the exam. Thanks.